What's up, y'all? Let's talk a little bit about Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 245. And specifically, I want to talk about Judgeman and Higuruma's domain and just his curse technique in general. So something a lot of people have pointed out, but in case you haven't noticed, is that when Judgeman gives out the guilty verdict here, one of the sewn shut eyes bursts open. Now that's actually a stark contrast from what we saw last time Judgeman gave a guilty verdict in chapter 165, the trial with Yuji. However, it is to be noted that the stitches do seem to be like pulling apart and straining, but they don't burst like they do here. Now, I've seen a lot of people saying Sukuna might have had something to do with this, and that like Sukuna messed with Higuruma's technique in some way and altered Judgeman or just did something to Judgeman. But that doesn't add up to me because the verdict was guilty. So why would Sukuna mess with Judgeman only to get a guilty verdict? And you might be saying, well, he wanted to see the executioner's sword. Of course he wants the guilty verdict. But I don't think he would have had to influence that. Like, he is guilty and he didn't make a statement. Like, I think that in and of itself was him just trying to get the guilty verdict. I don't think he did anything further to manipulate it. So I don't think Sukuna had anything to do with this. I think instead it has to do with Higuruma himself and his ideals and his changing view on the landscape of law, if you will. So let me elaborate. So Higuruma is a genius. He's prodigious at law, so much so that he was offered to become a judge at a very young age. But he actually turns that promotion down because he's wrestling with something. He's wrestling with this philosophical idea of law and humanity and how those things interact. He doesn't see it necessarily the same way the system wants him to see it. And these feelings are all coalesced into a single point where Higuruma says, even if no one else does, I want to keep my eyes open. So to circle back to the opening eye of Judgeman, I believe this is representative of an internal shift within Higuruma. And Jujutsu Kaisen gets philosophical, like this conversation between Mahito and Kenjaku where they're talking about their different worldviews. It's speculated that perhaps their own techniques dictate their worlds, being that Mahito, putting the emphasis on the soul while Kenjaku does the body, but both things are true for them respectively. So similarly, Higuruma having this internal introspective shift could manifest in his curse technique. And in chapter 244, Higuruma even says, things I think are possible, Judgeman probably thinks are possible as well, drawing the explicit connection between Higuruma's own worldview and how Judgeman operates. So what does this mean? Well, Higuruma wants to keep his eyes open, and Judgeman is following suit. They no longer want justice to be blind. Instead of being bound by the laws and structures that Judgeman's current domain operates on, I think instead it will be bound by Higuruma's own worldview and his morality. And the eye is opening as it is transitioning to that. And just like we saw here where the stitches are pulling and ripping but didn't yet rip, it's because Higuruma didn't think Yuji deserved it. Yuji got the guilty verdict in the system that is currently operating. Yes, it is because he confessed. But even still, Higuruma was like, this isn't right, and shut it down. Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking, I've been like waxing poetic on this for like 5 minutes, and it would be hilarious if just next chapter Higuruma and nothing comes of this. But let me know y'all's thoughts in the comments.